I got surprised pregnant, and my boyfriend demanded his mom would raise our baby or he leaves me. So I chose my son over both of them and did this when he came begging. Throwaway. BC, my ex's mom is always lurking on Reddit. So I, female, 24, just went through the most insane breakup of my life, and I honestly don't know if I made the right choice, but I think I did. Like, I'm sitting here at 2 a.m. trying to process everything that happened. I was with Kyle, male, 26, for 2 years. We met, and honestly, he seemed perfect at first. He works at an auto shop, I work retail at Macy's, and we've been living together in my tiny apartment for about 1.5 years now. Or well, was living together until 3 days ago. Kyle has always been super close to his mom, Victoria, like really close. He basically tells her everything that's happening in our lives. At first I thought it was sweet, but then I started realizing he was literally sharing everything. Like when we had fights about money, or when I was stressed about work or whatever, she knew all of it. Speaking of money, God, this is where it gets messy. So my rent went up like 6 months ago, and I started keeping this budget journal because I was freaking out about making ends meet. I'm talking every receipt saved, the whole 9 yards. I know it sounds obsessive, but when you're making $12 an hour at retail, you kind of have to be obsessive about every dollar. Well, tracking everything showed me some pretty ugly patterns. Kyle has been letting me cover his groceries for like 8 months now, and his portion of utilities. Meanwhile, he's buying these expensive car parts and gaming equipment constantly. Like, I'm talking $200 exhaust pipes and $300 gaming chairs while I'm eating ramen for dinner so we don't get evicted. My mom, Andrea, always tells me during our Tuesday coffee meetups that Kyle reminds her of my dad. She says he's charming until real responsibility shows up. Then he finds excuses to put himself first. I always defended him because, he is charming and sweet most of the time. But Mom has this way of seeing through people's BS that's honestly scary accurate. Oh, and Victoria has a spare key to my apartment. Kyle gave it to her for emergencies, but she uses it to just show up sometimes. 2 weeks ago, I came home from work and she had completely rearranged my kitchen cabinets. Completely. Like, all my dishes were in different places, and she had thrown away some of my spices that were expired. They weren't. When I got upset, she said, "A clean home reflects a clean mind," and acted like she was doing me a favor. The breaking point happened last month. I was paying bills with my budget journal open, showing all the expenses I'd been covering for him, visibly stressed and probably crying a little. Retail plus money stress equals constant crying. And Kyle walks in and asks me to cover his portion of rent because he really needs some new exhaust system for his car. The timing of it. Looking at this journal full of all the times I'd bailed him out while he bought toys for himself, and he's asking for more money while I'm literally calculating if I can afford groceries this week. I didn't say yes or no that night. I just said I needed to think about it. Then 2 weeks ago, I fainted at work. Just completely passed out during my shift, and my manager made me go to urgent care to get checked out. That's when I found out I'm pregnant, 6 weeks along. I know this sounds totally made up, but I swear this is exactly how it happened. I was staring at the test results, feeling this weird mixture of pure terror and this unexpected joy. Like, part of me was terrified because we can barely afford our current life, but another part of me was actually excited about having a baby. I told Kyle that night when he got home from work. I just blurted it out like, "Hey, so I'm pregnant." Probably not the best delivery. He went completely silent. Not just like quiet, I mean silent. Didn't say a word. Just stared at me for like 30 seconds, then went to bed. For 3 days, he wouldn't talk to me, wouldn't respond to texts, didn't come home 2 of those nights, staying at Victoria's obviously, and when I tried to bring it up, he'd just say he was processing and needed space to think. Then Friday night, he comes home and sits me down looking all serious. This is where things get really weird. He starts explaining that Victoria has offered to raise the baby since we're clearly too young and unprepared for this responsibility. Use those exact words. It sounded like he was reading from a script, honestly. He's framing it as this practical solution where we can still be involved, but Victoria would handle the day-to-day parenting stuff. I'm sitting there like, what the actual fuck? This is our baby, and he's talking about it like we're discussing who should adopt a puppy we can't keep. He keeps using this weird business-like language that doesn't sound like him at all, promising we can visit whenever we want, like the baby would be our nephew instead of our actual child. When I said absolutely not and that I was keeping my baby, he got this cold look I've never seen before. This is when he delivered his ultimatum. This isn't what I signed up for. Either we do this mom's way or I'm out. I honestly couldn't believe what I was hearing. Through tears, mine, not his, he was weirdly emotionless. He admitted he can't handle this kind of pressure and needs Victoria to make decisions for us. Then he confessed that he's been telling Victoria everything about our relationship, our fights, our money problems, everything, and that she's been helping him make better decisions all along. When I told him there was no way in hell I was giving up my parental rights to his mother, he just got up and started grabbing his gaming stuff. Didn't even pack clothes, really, just his PlayStation and computer setup. Said something like, "Fine, but don't expect me to stick around for this mess." And that was it. He left. I've been sitting here for 3 days just processing, I guess. I blocked both him and Victoria on everything. Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat changed their contact names to do not answer in my phone. I'm 8 weeks pregnant, work retail, making barely enough to survive, and I'm about to be a single mom. But honestly, I feel this weird sense of relief alongside the heartbreak. Like I'm finally seeing Kyle clearly for the first time in 2 years. I'm keeping my baby. I'm going to figure this out somehow. But I keep second-guessing myself, wondering if I'm crazy for choosing my unborn child over keeping the relationship. Did I make the right choice? Am I insane for wanting to raise this baby alone instead of letting his mom take over? Edit. Since people are asking, no, I haven't told my mom yet. I'm still processing, and I know she's going to have opinions, especially since she already thought Kyle was bad news. Also, yes, I realize how messed up it is that his mom had a key to my apartment. I got the locks changed yesterday. And to answer the obvious question, no, Kyle never offered to pay child support or anything like that during our conversation. He went straight from, let my mom raise it, to, I'm out, with no middle ground. Now for the first update. Welcome back, everyone. So it's been about 3 weeks since my last post, and honestly, things have been weird. First off, thank you to everyone who commented on my last post telling me I made the right choice. Reading all your responses, especially the ones about deadbeat dads and manipulative mother-in-laws, really helped me feel less crazy about the whole situation. Like, I keep going back and reading them when I start second-guessing myself. So these past 3 weeks have actually been really peaceful. No calls, no texts, no random apartment visits from Victoria. Thank God I changed those locks. I've been using this time to, actually prepare for being a mom instead of dealing with Kyle's mess. My mom, Andrea, has been amazing. She's been texting me budgeting tips almost daily and helped me sign up for WIC benefits. She keeps sending me links to articles about single parenting and stuff. I know she's trying not to say, I told you so about Kyle, but I can tell she's relieved he's gone. My best friend, Kimberly, organized this small baby shower last weekend with just our close friends from high school. Nothing fancy, just pizza and cake at her apartment. But everyone brought practical stuff like diapers and onesies and baby blankets. It was the first time in months I felt actually excited about having a baby instead of just terrified about money. I've been keeping up with my budget journal, but now it's tracking different stuff. Instead of documenting all the ways Kyle was draining my bank account, I'm writing down every baby-related expense and every dollar I'm managing to save. It sounds weird, but seeing those positive numbers makes me feel more in control. Like I'm actually making progress instead of just trying to survive. I'm still saving every receipt though. Plus I want a record of building this life on my own. I've been taking my prenatal vitamins and reading pregnancy books from the library during lunch breaks. Rearranged my apartment to make space for a nursery in the corner of my bedroom. It's tiny, but it'll work. I'm about 11 weeks now and starting to feel less nauseous, which is nice. But then yesterday happened. So my coworker Jessica mentioned last week that she'd seen some social media posts where Kyle was telling people I won't let him see his kid, and basically painting himself as this victim who wants to do the right thing. I don't follow him, obviously, since I blocked him everywhere, but Jessica showed me screenshots, and it was pretty gross. He was getting sympathy from people who don't know the whole story. I had this sinking feeling he might try to come back, but I wasn't expecting it to happen so soon. Yesterday morning around 9 a.m. there's a knock on my door. I look through the peephole and it's Kyle, standing there looking all disheveled and sad. I know this sounds totally paranoid, but I didn't open the door at first. I was like, how did he even get up here since I changed the locks and never gave him new keys? Turns out he sweet-talked the building manager into letting him up by saying he forgot his key and was just visiting his pregnant girlfriend. The manager is this older guy who probably thought he was being helpful. So Kyle's knocking and calling my name through the door, saying he just wants to talk. I finally opened it, but kept the chain lock on. He immediately starts crying. Not like angry crying, but this pathetic sobbing thing. Says he's been thinking and realizes he made a huge mistake. He's sorry for everything, and he wants to be a father now. The whole conversation was probably like 20 minutes of him standing in my hallway trying to convince me to let him in. I stayed in the doorway the whole time. He kept saying stuff like he's ready to step up and wants another chance to prove himself. Language that honestly sounded like he'd been reading those posts about deadbeat dads online. When I asked what changed his mind, he gave these vague answers about growing up and learning what's important. But here's the thing that really bothered me. At one point, he mentioned that he broke up with someone he'd been casually seeing, which means he moved on immediately after leaving me, but now wants to come back and play happy family. He tried to hug me when I still had the chain lock on and acted all hurt when I stepped back. Started talking about baby names and making plans, like the past couple of months didn't happen. When I wasn't immediately forgiving him, he got frustrated and asked why I was being so cold when he's trying to do the right thing. He even threatened to take me to court if I didn't let him be involved with the baby. I told him I needed time to think about it and asked him to leave. He didn't want to, but I threatened to call the building manager and complain about him harassing tenants. Before he left, he made me promise to really consider his offer. The whole thing felt off, like he was performing instead of actually being genuine. I called my mom right after he left because I was shaking and couldn't think straight. Mom asked all these pointed questions that I wasn't even thinking of. Like, why didn't he contact me sooner if he'd been thinking about this for weeks? Why mention the other relationship at all, unless he was trying to make me jealous or prove he had options? She said his timing was suspicious, showing up right when I'm starting to show and can't hide the pregnancy anymore. She reminded me that when someone shows you who they are the first time, believe them. Kyle showed me he was willing to abandon his child when things got complicated. She said people don't usually change that much that fast, especially not without doing any actual work on themselves. Most importantly, she asked what my gut was telling me. And honestly, my gut says this is bullshit. He's facing pressure from someone, probably Victoria, or maybe mutual friends calling him out, and thinks he can waltz back in with some tears and apologies. The thing is, I've been doing fine without him. Better than fine, actually. I'm not scrambling to cover his expenses anymore. I'm not dealing with his mood swings anymore. I'm not dealing with Victoria's weird boundary violations. I'm scared as hell about being a single mom, but I'm not desperate enough to take back someone who already proved he'll bail when things get hard. If Kyle contacts me again, I'm planning to ask him for concrete proof of his commitment. Not just words about stepping up, but actual evidence that he's changed. Because right now, this feels like manipulation when I'm supposed to be more vulnerable in pregnancy. I've learned to trust my instincts instead of hoping people will change into who I want them to be. And my instincts are screaming that this is a trap. The really messed up part is, part of me almost wants to believe him. Like there's this tiny voice saying, what if he really did realize his mistake and wants to make it right? But then I remember him coldly packing up his PlayStation while I was crying and telling me this wasn't what he signed up for. Actions matter more than words, and his actions showed me exactly who he is. Edit 1. To everyone asking if I think Victoria put him up to this, honestly, yeah, probably. The timing is too convenient and his language sounded rehearsed. I bet she's been getting questions from family about her son abandoning his pregnant girlfriend and decided he needed to fix his image. Edit 2. For those asking about his mention of taking me to court, he can't afford a lawyer. Trust me, he couldn't even afford his half of utilities, and based on his history of avoiding commitment, he won't follow through on legal threats. Plus, what judge is going to be sympathetic to a guy who told his pregnant girlfriend to give their baby to his mommy or he'd leave? Now for the second update. I've been putting off writing this update for like 2 weeks, but honestly, after yesterday, I'm still shaking and need to get this out. So it's been about a month since Kyle showed up at my door with his whole "I want to be a father now" speech. I thought that was the end of it, but obviously I was being way too optimistic about his ability to just leave me alone. These past few weeks have actually been pretty good despite everything. I've been going to these prenatal classes at the community center every Thursday, and honestly, it's been so helpful. Not just for like learning about breathing techniques and stuff, but because there are other women there dealing with similar situations. There's this one girl, Madison, who's maybe 19 and her baby daddy took off the second she told him she was pregnant. Another woman, Sarah, is like 32 and her husband left her when she was 7 months along because he decided he wasn't ready for the responsibility. Sound familiar? I've been keeping up with my budget journal during all this time, but now I've been doing something different with it. Instead of just tracking current expenses, I've been going back through old entries and actually calculating exactly what Kyle's abandoned responsibilities cost me. Not because I was planning anything specific, at least not at first, but because I wanted to understand the real financial impact of his choices. Like, I knew he'd been letting me cover stuff, but I never sat down and actually added it all up. Groceries he ate but didn't pay for, utilities when he'd skip his half, times he asked me to cover his portion of rent, even stupid stuff like when he'd use my Netflix account after canceling his own. Just pages and pages of small amounts that added up to something pretty shocking. I had this feeling he was going to come back again. Maybe it was intuition, or maybe it was because mutual friends started reaching out asking weird questions about how I was doing and whether I was being fair to Kyle. Jessica from work told me she'd seen more posts where he was painting himself as this victim who just wants to be a good father, but his baby mama won't let him. Plus, Victoria called my workplace twice. She told my manager she was concerned about my well-being and wanted to know if I was taking care of myself properly during my pregnancy. My manager, Sarah, different Sarah than from prenatal class, was super weird about it and asked if there were family issues I needed time off for. I had to explain that my ex's mom was basically harassing me, and could they please not give out any information about my schedule or anything. It felt like harassment disguised as concern, you know? So when I heard knocking on my door yesterday morning around 8 a.m., earlier than last time, I already knew it was probably him. But this time he wasn't doing the whole sad victim routine. This time he was pissed. He was literally pounding on my door until I opened it. Not knocking, pounding. When I opened the door with the chain still on, he immediately tried to push past me. I let him in because honestly, I was worried about the noise and my lease situation. My landlord already thinks I'm a problem tenant because of the lock change situation last month. The second he got inside, he started yelling about his rights as a father and how I was being vindictive and keeping his son from him. Excuse me, I'm 15 weeks pregnant. There's no actual baby to keep from anyone yet. He went on this whole rant about how he's been trying to do the right thing, but I won't let him. How Victoria has been heartbroken about not being able to see her grandchild. Again, there's literally no grandchild to see yet. How he's talked to people who told him I have to let him see the baby, or he can take me to court. When I asked him about the financial support he got even angrier, called it petty, and said real fathers shouldn't be punished for past mistakes. He said I was being manipulative by making everything about money when he's just trying to be a good parent now. The whole thing was so different from his crying victim act last month. This felt aggressive and entitled, like he'd rehearsed these talking points with someone, probably Victoria, and was expecting me to cave under pressure. But here's the weird thing. Instead of getting scared or upset, I actually felt calmer. Like his anger was just proving that my gut feelings about him were totally right. While he was ranting about lawyers and his rights and how unfair I was being, I just walked to my bedroom and got my budget journal. I came back and placed it on the coffee table and opened it to the pages where I'd been doing calculations. All those handwritten numbers showing exactly what his abandoned responsibilities had cost me. "This is what you cost me," I said, pointing to the total at the bottom of one page. $847. He stopped mid-rant and stared at the journal. I explained that this number represented every grocery bill I covered while he bought exhaust pipes, every utility payment he skipped while purchasing gaming equipment, every time he asked me to cover his rent portion so he could afford car modifications. All calculated out in my messy handwriting with dates and amounts. "Pay this," I told him, "and we can have a conversation about your involvement." But it wasn't really about the money itself. I mean, it was, but it wasn't, the money represented the pattern. His willingness to let other people pay for his choices while he spent his money on toys for himself. I told him if he couldn't handle an $847 consequence for past actions, he definitely couldn't handle 18 years of financial responsibility for a child. And honestly, watching his fake concern disappear, The second he realized I was serious about accountability was everything. He went from, "I just want to be a good father," to calling me petty and manipulative for making this about money in about 30 seconds. He stormed around my tiny apartment looking for arguments that would work, getting more frustrated when I stayed calm. Kept insisting this was different, that the past didn't matter, that I was being unfair by connecting his pattern of behavior to his current promises. I finally told him. His reaction was proving he hasn't changed at all. He still expects other people to clean up his messes and take care of the hard stuff while he gets credit for just showing up. He left threatening court action, but honestly, he can't afford a lawyer. He couldn't even afford his half of our utilities. And based on his history of avoiding real commitment, the second things get difficult, I seriously doubt he'll follow through on legal threats. Since he left, Victoria has been posting all this passive-aggressive stuff on Facebook about ungrateful people and grandparents' rights, but I looked it up and they literally have no legal standing. The baby isn't even born yet, and even when he is, Kyle would need to establish paternity in a relationship first before his mom could claim any rights. For the first time in months, I actually feel proud of myself. Not scared, not guilty, proud. My son is going to learn that love comes with respect and responsibility, not ultimatums and empty promises. He's going to see that I chose protecting him over trying to force a broken relationship to work. I'm still terrified about single motherhood, obviously. Money is tight, and I don't have all the answers. But I'm confident I made the right choice for both of us. I think Kyle might try other manipulation tactics. Maybe having Victoria contact me directly, or getting other family members involved. But now I recognize his patterns, and I'm not falling for them again. He showed me who he was when things got complicated, and I believed him. Information to add. Since people are asking, yes, I saved screenshots of Victoria's passive-aggressive posts in case I need them later for documentation. My mom says to keep records of everything, just in case they escalate their harassment. Also, yes, I realize $847 might not sound like a lot to some people, but when you're making $12 an hour at retail, that represents weeks of my income that I had to sacrifice while he bought toys for himself. To those asking about the legal stuff, I contacted a free legal clinic, and they confirmed Kyle has no established rights since paternity hasn't been determined yet, and he hasn't provided any support. They also said his threats about taking me to court are probably empty, since he'd need money for a lawyer and a track record of trying to be involved, which he obviously doesn't have. A few people messaged asking if I feel bad about using money to manipulate him. And honestly, no, I don't. I wasn't trying to manipulate him. I was trying to see if he was willing to take accountability for past actions before promising future responsibility. His reaction showed me everything I needed to know about whether he's actually changed. For everyone saying I should take him back for the baby's sake, my baby deserves better than growing up watching his mom tolerate disrespect and broken promises. Children learn more from what they see than what they're told. And I want my son to see that healthy relationships require mutual respect and follow-through, not just good intentions when it's convenient.